Hello and welcome to this edition of the CrushCast. I'm Jesse Morrison, joined alongside Steve Durr, and today we're doing something a little different and something that we're gonna have a lot of fun doing, and that is previewing the Major League Baseball season, which is set to begin July 23rd. So Steve, I just wanted to get into this first of all. Do we actually see this happening in home stadiums? They're not doing a bubble, which scares me a little bit, but do you see this happening in home stadiums?
I see it starting at least on July 23rd. I really don't know how it's going to finish. Look, an example, you have the AL East and NL East playing teams in Florida. And Florida right now is a big hot spot with the coronavirus. You're going to have teams like the Yankees and the Mets, where in New York State, the coronavirus cases are going down, traveling to where it's spiking in Florida, which can cause some issues. It really depends on how MLB is going to deal with the specifics of traveling, meaning teams on private planes and stuff like that, making sure they're in clean hotels right by the stadium so that don't have to travel that much. It really depends on those aspects, but it's going to be really hard to see if a 60-game season will go from start to finish. I definitely believe we will be starting in a week and a half. The MLB will be starting, but when it comes to October with the postseason, it's a little iffy for sure.
I think that I've just thought that this whole time, like, why isn't baseball doing a bubble? Because baseball is the easiest sport to do a bubble with. Because I'm out here, I covered spring training. There's these spring training facilities out in the middle of like the suburbs, out basically in the middle of nowhere, that have 8, 9, 10 fields, including the 2 stadiums, and you could put the National League in one of those and then the American League in one of the ones down in Florida or something like that. And, you can use, construction lifts for cameras if they want to just play on one of the auxiliary fields for one of the games. I just think it's ridiculous that they're playing in their home stadiums. You want your players to see their families and stuff, though, and I think that was very important to them. But who knows where their families are going to be? So that has me very, very concerned. I'm excited. I'm very excited. Baseball is my favorite sport. I did fantasy baseball this year. Like I'm all in on fantasy baseball. I think it's gonna be way more fun because I normally just forget about fantasy baseball because the season's so long.
Me too, yeah. Now at 60 games will be perfect. I have an idea for what the bubbles were going to be in my head. So I would just break it up by East, Central, and West. So I would say have the East teams play in New York. Right now the coronavirus cases are going down. So you have the NL teams play at Citi Field, the American League teams play at Yankee Stadium, and when there's interleague play, it's easy to work by because it's like they say, it's a subway train away. Even though they probably wouldn't take the subway, it is not that far of a drive to get from Yankee Stadium to Citi Field. Then the Central, you can do something like play in Ohio with Cincinnati and Cleveland, both having teams in that state. The West is where I wouldn't know where you'd play because right now that's where coronavirus hot spots are. So I don't necessarily know where, but it could be a minor league stadium or a couple of minor league stadiums that are by each other, really.
Yeah, I mean, like for like Arizona's bad, but if they're all quarantining in the same spot, that'd be great. Like you could honestly, like those training complexes are so big, and you could sleep in the suites. Like they've got really nice suites there, and some of these spring training stadiums are nicer than like the A's spring training stadium. Whereas where the Cubs used to play is probably nicer than their home stadium in the Oakland Coliseum. So, I mean, I would just say that, especially those West Coast teams, just to quarantine down in this bubble. You can even use Chase Field. You could bus from the bubble to Chase Field if you need to, because I mean that's not really getting outside of the bubble. Or they could stay at Chase Field.
Only go on the bus to the field and back, and you don't leave any. That would be smart as well. It's just really to see how this plays out. You could have brought maybe the families. You could have the option to bring the immediate families into the bubble if you really want to. A family by family decision, that wouldn't be a horrible thing.
Yeah, but I don't really want to harp on that. We're going to hope that there's 60 games of baseball and a World Series. And I wanted to start kind of with just looking at the teams that are kind of closest to Cortland, or people in the Cortland area might cheer for. And I want to start off with the Mets. And I don't really have too many thoughts on the Mets other than that Pete Alonso is really good, probably the best first baseman in the National League. And they have Jacob deGrom, probably the best pitcher in baseball. And if those guys perform, then the Mets could be really good. But the Mets are the Mets, and that's probably not, something's going to happen, and they're not going to be good, and they're going to win 20 games and, finish fourth or fifth in that division.
Here's my take on the Mets. They have the potential to win the World Series. They really do. They have a deep lineup, a lot of depth at a lot of positions, especially with Cespedes coming back. Who knows how he is going to be? You have obviously Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, who for some reason is very underrated as a baseball player, but bats 340 or 330.
Yeah, he's one of the best contact hitters in baseball.
He could bat 400 this year.
Yeah.
He could.
Yeah.
And the Mets upgrade the bullpen. Dylan Betances is a really big move. I also see Edwin Diaz bouncing back from last year. His stuff's too good to really not just do better than what he did last year, which really isn't too hard in retrospect to do, considering he led the league in blown slaves. But his stuff is so good that he really should bounce back. Justin Wilson, a good lefty out of the pen too. Seth Lugo, really good reliever, developed into a huge aspect for the Mets during their hot streak last year. I can really see the Mets making a deep run. The only issue is that the NL East is probably the best division in baseball when it comes to depth, obviously besides the Marlins. But besides the Marlins on the bottom, you got the Phillies along with them, the Nationals defending World Series champions, and probably the best pitching rotation, in baseball. And then the Braves, the young and fun, energizing team themselves. That is a really, really tough division. And the Mets are also going to be playing the Yankees 4 times. And I think they play the Rays, I want to say 4 times maybe.
Oh.
So those will be tough. The East teams, that's the reason why the Mets might not have as much success, especially with no expansion in the playoffs. But they are dangerous for sure. But however, I'll disagree with you that Pete Alonso is not the best first baseman. I would say Freddie Freeman.
Oh, that's a good take too. But as far as just your kind of perfect player nowadays, I guess I would go with Pete Alonso. I mean, 53 home runs. Freddie Freeman has never had that power. He never will. So I think that I would go Pete Alonso just off of who I'd rather have on my team right now. Because Freddie's getting into his 30s and Pete's 25 and it's just hits dingers. But you forgot one guy that's on the Mets and I think that this season benefits the old player a lot because only 60 games, and that's Robinson Cano. He's still on that team. Yeah. So people like Robinson Cano, Albert Pujols this year, I think could have really good years just because they don't have that time period for a slump, because they're tired and old.
And the Mets, they are always really good at beginning their season. So as of right now, it looks like they'll have a very good 60 games, but by the time they get to the postseason, they may go through that horrendous slump that they would usually have in June. So they'll be very up and then very bad when they get to the playoffs if they follow the previous year's trends. Robinson Cano, though, has yet to show up to camp. The Mets won't say why. You can guess maybe he might have corona. It could be other issues.
Or he just doesn't want to be there, wants to opt out. Actually hadn't heard that news yet, so I'll make sure to note that's a big blow. He hit like 256 with 13 homers last year. He was an awful, but it's all up in the air with the Mets. You never know. They could make the World Series or they could be absolutely atrocious. And
exactly
because 5 years ago, people forget they were in the World Series.
Really good team too.
Yeah, really good team. But the other team in New York City, the Yankees, they are another team, in my opinion, that could be really good or for various reasons miss the playoffs because I just think that they're going to have trouble staying healthy.
For me, the Yankees have tremendous depth, and that is the reason why I see them in the playoffs and making a deep run. I just don't think – we were talking about this a little bit before the show. They are handling their team too well, but I've kind of had maybe irrational takes of them, maybe because I'm a big fan, not trying to show their bias in. I think the Yankees should have tried to put Andujar at first base a lot more. I think he's more versatile than Luke Voit, and his bat realistically is better than Luke Voit. I think Luke Voit really kind of went past his peak time in the major leagues. And I really thought the Yankees should move past from Brett Gardner. I guess when you think about a 60-game season, this would be pretty good to have Gardner. But Clint Frazier, the Yankees traded for a few years back in that Andrew Miller deal, and he was supposed to be the steal. And I just think it's his time. He's been waiting for so long. He's really honestly earned it with his bat, especially, and he's shown defensive improvements. I think he should be the left fielder for the Yankees, with Stan being the DH for the future, considering you really want Stan to be healthy and you have his dangerous bat in the lineup. So Clint Frazier should really be the left field option for the Yankees. I don't really see why they haven't been using him. It's really interesting to see. Another thing right now, DJ LeMahieu out with coronavirus. He could be ready for opening day. We'll see how that goes, but I'm not too worried about that. Chapman as well. He's out with coronavirus, but that's also something you really don't want to worry about too much because the Yankees bullpen is obviously their strength. So with that, you can move Zach Britton into the closing role, and he will be just fine in that role. You also have Canley, Ottavino, Chad Green for late inning work. There's nothing really too much to worry about there with Chapman being on the IL with coronavirus.
And I was looking at Clint Frazier's stats, and last year in 69 games, which is, close to what they're playing this year, very good numbers. 267 average, 489 slugging, 806 OPS, 12 home runs, 38 RBIs, 14 doubles. That is, in my opinion, better than what Brett Gardner can do at his age. So I agree with you there. Brett Gardner, I would keep him on the team because he's a good veteran leader, but I wouldn't.
Off the bench.
Yeah, keep him on the bench. Keep him come off the bench. I don't know if he would want to do that, but you could keep him on the bench and have him be that veteran presence. In my opinion, though, this team runs through Judge and Stanton, and if Judge and Stanton aren't healthy, then that's a big problem for the Yankees because Yankees teams in the past have always had good power hitters. You need power hitters in New York. That park is so short and is perfect for power hitters. So I definitely think that if they can't be healthy, then yeah, they might still make the playoffs, but I think those two guys must be healthy come postseason for them to do anything. And we're already hearing Judge with a stiff neck, and so that scares me a lot because they've been injury prone, and I would I never wish injury on anyone. I don't want the Yankees to do well at all because I'm a Baltimore Orioles fan. So whatever.
Don't get started. Your Orioles have no shot this year. They win
Everybody has a shot. Anybody you've seen teams do well in 60 games and then end up losing 90. So it's they could anybody's division, anybody's season this year. I think that's what makes it interesting. And the Orioles are talking about signing Yasiel Puig, so that could be a big addition to
difference right there. We found it.
But what about your least favorite team, the Boston Red Sox? I think they're going to be absolutely atrocious this year. They have no pitching whatsoever.
Yeah, they really have no pitching at all, and pitching is probably the most important aspect in a 60-game season for sure. Their offense will be there. They still got Rafael Devers, JD Martinez, Bogarts, Benintendi. So that's something to worry about. But I don't know who's their ace, Eduardo Rodriguez this year.
They're talking it. So the Orioles play the Red Sox on opening day. Orioles named John Means, the All-Star from last year, the ace, but one of the most underrated pitchers in baseball. He was named as their opening day guy. And in the article that I was reading, it said either Evaldi or Eduardo Rodriguez, and I just
Evaldi is back, yes.
Yeah, Evaldi or Eduardo Rodriguez, and I just started laughing because I was just like, that's just not going to get them anywhere with those two guys at the top of their rotation. Evaldi's good, but he was very good in the postseason. But
Evaldi has the stuff to dominate in a 60-game season.
Yeah,
he's a very streaky pitcher. If he's on the hot streak when the season starts, that is what the Red Sox need. I would say Evaldi is the X factor for the Red Sox season.
Yeah, but
He
last year,
probably had a chance.
you look at his numbers last year, though, he was 2-1 with a 5.99 and 23 games, 12 starts, which is the amount of starts that, if you divide 60 by 5, that they would be making this year. 70 strikeouts and 67 and 2/3 and a 1.581 whip. So
Mhm.
I don't have much faith in him. I don't have much faith in the staff, but they're going to have a decent lineup. Jackie Bradley Jr. needs to perform.
They
Um,
will.
but I just don't see the pitching holding up. I don't see them making the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't see them making the playoffs too. The AL is very stacked right now. Obviously, we'll get to our playoff preview later, but it's just even though the AL East really isn't that strong, the two top teams in the AL East, with the Yankees and the Rays, are just steps above the Red Sox right now in overall team depth.
And Cortland's close enough to Canada that I wanted to touch on the Blue Jays, the 1990s junior team, with all the 90s stars kids, 90s and 2000s stars kids, Kevin Biggio, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichetti, all of their parents were, or their dads were excellent Major League Baseball players in their time. Do you see this being a good year for the Blue Jays, or is it a few more years off for them?
This could be the year they break out. It's a good time to break out with the 60-game season. And who knows, very comparable team is the New York Yankees from 2017. They could be that Yankees from 2017, just break out in aura with like the Yankees back then with Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez. This is a very similar situation with Guerrero, Biggio, and Bichette that you can really see happen, break out. But the problem is their pitching. Their pitching isn't fully there yet. Their lineup, though, has potential to be very, very dangerous. So that team is going to be really fun and exciting to watch. I know the Blue Jays gave Yankees some trouble last year. But like I said, if there's one season to have the breakout season, it would be right now. Why not? 60 games, get hot early. There's really no pressure in this season, it seems like. So this would be good for the young players to relax, to go out there, play some ball. And it's just a shortened season, just like a Cortland Crush season, almost like that. It's their time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you could see them all breaking out, or you could see a sophomore slump for Bichette, who was the kind of the surprise of the three of them. You thought maybe that Guerrero would come up and be the best one. He was okay. He was decent, but Bichette, who had been in the 280s, 270s in AA, AAA, he came up and hit 311 last year. So I could see it just them kind of staying the same, putting up some numbers, not yet breaking out, or I could see all three of those guys breaking out and then being like that 2017 Yankees team that was just a surprise breakout team with the young guns. So yeah, I could see them. They're definitely going to be better than the Red Sox, in my opinion.
I think the Blue Jays will finish in third, maybe second, and then the Red Sox finish fourth, and your Orioles will finish last.
Yeah, because the Rays and the Yankees are the top two, and then switch. I don't have really a prediction of where either of them are going to finish. And I think Blue Jays, Red Sox, and sadly I've still got to put the Orioles at fifth. They just
Good.
don't have enough right now. Lowest payroll in baseball. Maybe if they sign Puig, but like Puig's okay. He's more excitement than really being a great player. He's good, but he's more excitement than really being a great player. But I just wanted to move on now to who do you think's coming out of the NL? Who do you think's coming out of the AL? Long way away, but who do you think what do you think the World Series matchup will be?
I wouldn't be surprised. Really, I'm really being honest with this if we see a Subway Series with the Yankee Met World Series. But I just feel like this is a perfect season for the Mets. To have a 60-game season just fits them so well. I just see that so well. But I'm going to go with the Dodgers. Like, it's really hard to shy away from them. They're really just stacked top to bottom. Even without David Price, like, I'm not really worried about that. David Price has fallen, not significantly. He's still a good pitcher, but not in this Cy Young form.
Every other year, man. And this would be the other year. So it's every other year for David Price.
I really don't see that being a huge difference, but the Dodgers lineup is just so good, and they have the pitching to back up to it. They've had some upgrades in the bullpen. The rotation is solid, top to bottom, not the best. So I see the Nationals coming out there. And this year, honestly, I hate to say this, but I'll remain with the Astros coming out of the
Oh.
AL. Even though no one in the MLB wants to see that, Verlander and Greinke at the top rotation. That lineup is still amazing, top to bottom. It's really hard to compete with that. Honestly, I think that lineup is better than the Dodgers still. So, which is why I think the Astros will be the American League champions, unfortunately. Very unfortunately.
I have a big hot take for my World Series matchup. I think coming out of the American League will be the Los Angeles Angels.
I knew you were going to say that. I actually had a really good feeling you were going to say that. I don't know why.
Los Angeles Angels are coming out of the American League. And here's why. Their number one, their rotation, no idea. No idea what's going to happen with them. I looked them up. Don't know half of those guys. However, Dylan Bundy is on that team. And when Oriole pitchers leave, they somehow just become Cy Young Award caliber pitchers. So look at him as, the next Jake Arrieta. Look at him as the next Jake Arrieta. And then the Rendon signing was a great signing for them. And then, of course, they've got the best player in all of baseball, Mike Trout. So I think this is the year that the Angels come out and Mike Trout gets to his first World Series, and we finally get to see that. And then my hot take out of the National League, and this is not just because I go to Arizona State, but I think they have a really solid team, and that is the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Diamondbacks are going to the World Series. There's no way you're actually saying that right now.
I am saying that.
I was surprised at that one. The Angels, I'm not that surprised, but I'm surprised. But the Diamondbacks?
Yes, and I'm going to go to the Dodgers for this take. So you look at the Diamondbacks, but I'm gonna go to the Dodgers to talk about the Dodgers. Clayton Kershaw is at the point in his career where he needs to figure out how to pitch again. He's in his early 30s. He's losing a little bit of velocity. It's gonna be like CC Sabathia and some of these other pitchers that we've seen throughout the years that need to, figure out how to pitch with lower velocity and locate things. I mean, Justin Verlander's velocity has gotten back up, but he kind of had to do the same thing. It's just something that happens with pitchers. I think he's at that stage in his career. I think Cody Bellinger is good, but I think he's a little bit overrated.
I agree.
And, I think that the Mad Bum deal was really good because I don't think he's somebody in his early 30s that's going to struggle because he's never been someone that really gasses it that much. But I love this lineup that the D-backs have. Ahmed's super underrated, best shortstop in the National League. Eduardo Escobar is also extremely underrated. Ketel Marte could be an MVP this year. If Cole Calhoun plays, he's solid. Starling Marte, David Peralta, like the team is loaded, and I could honestly see them getting out of the National League.
I don't see that at all. I'm sorry. I can name a lot of the teams. I can see the Reds above them. I'll see the Mets. I see anyone in the NL East besides the Marlins that more than the Diamondbacks. That is a really hot take. That hits. I will shoot you a text and be like, "Wow, I owe you everything." But
if I was a betting man, I would put like $100 down on them to make it to the World Series.
Put $10 and be fine. You can put $10 and make a lot of money with that. So would you say as your sleeper team then, would it be the Arizona Diamondbacks?
No, I think an even bigger sleeper team is the Angels, honestly. Like,
they
don't have Mad Bum.
That was me. My sleeper team was going to be the Angels. But for sakes, I'll say the Mets as a sleeper team. I think a lot of people are sleeping on them considering the depth of the National League East. But when I mean sleeper team to make the World Series, and that would be the New York Mets. I would not be surprised if they get really hot and they just dominate from start to finish in a really hot 60-game stretch.
Who's your champion?
My champion for the World Series is going to be the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Okay.
Now they have the depth. They have the great lineup to really they're just always right there. They're always right there. Like, this is the time just to get over the hump. And I think the Dodgers will finally do it.
if they win this year, everybody will be like, "Oh, there's a big asterisk next to that World
There
Series.
isn't.
It doesn't
There isn't.
really count." Blah blah blah.
I like Garrett. I like Garrett Cole's take on it, where it's just like, actually, why wouldn't you want to win this year? This is the coronavirus year. So this, if anything, this is a bigger magnitude. The only thing I don't like is that they didn't extend the postseason for this year.
Yeah, I would have liked it extended a little bit. Maybe 12 teams. I think that'd be a good number. But I'm gonna go with the Angels. This is a big hot take, but I think that this is the year that Trout gets it done. I don't really know why. That division has the Astros. This is probably a terrible take, but at the same
It's
time,
not a terrible take. I actually like him a lot. Shohei Ohtani, we're not even talking about him. He's bounced back.
yeah, I forgot he's a pitcher. Like I forgot that he's a pitcher.
He's top pitching, and it's 60 games. It won't be too much stress on his arm. So it's kind of a good year to bounce back from Tommy John surgery to pitch, because you really don't have to worry about innings limits. You will definitely be under the innings limit if you're pitching every fifth day. I can see also some teams going with the 4-man starting rotation, considering how big the magnitude each games are, because every game really matters. You can't really go on a 5-game losing streak without bouncing back with like winning 12 of 14 games right after. If you don't do that, you're not going to make the playoffs. So it's going to be really interesting to see how teams manage pitching.
My question here, though, is I know there's a DH for both leagues this year. Can Shohei hit when he pitches if they want to, though? Or do you have to have a DH? That is something that I don't know.
I think you have to have a DH.
Okay, because that would hurt them in the World Series. Because what if they want, Shohei on the mound, but also hitting in a Game 7 of the World Series?
But it also helps in the sake for keeping him focused on the mound. Because when you want your pitcher on the mound, you just want him to be out there doing the best he can on the mound, dominating the other hitters from the opposing team. Just, I guess, from my experience.
Yeah, but I mean, there's Game 7s in National League parks all the time where the pitcher hits, and
but
he's timed in
the league anyway, so technically it really wouldn't work for him unless he was in the World Series.
Yeah. But who do you think of, Shohei is kind of someone that you could say might have a breakout season, even though he's already kind of broken out, but he could have a breakout both pitching and hitting at the same time. But yeah, who's someone that you could see having a breakout season this year?
I'm going to say Gleyber Torres. I know he might have broke out a little bit last year, but when I'm talking about breakout, I think he's going to go the next step above and get to MVP conversation level.
He broke out against the Orioles.
Well, the half of his home runs last year were from the Baltimore Oriole games, and those were so fun to watch. Gary Thorne was getting really amazed to see how many home runs the Orioles pitchers can allow to Gleyber Torres himself. He is definitely the MVP against the Orioles this year compared to any other player. But I really think Gleyber Torres has the opportunity this year to take a step above, to go from all-star to MVP caliber player like he is, like when the Yankees traded for him in that Chapman deal, which I consider still one of the greatest trades in this era for sure. Maybe even all time going back on it. We'll see. The Yankees have to get a World Series with him in order to make up for that. But anyhow, I think Gleyber Torres is going to be in the MVP conversations this year.
I like Vlad Jr. I think that with, him not having to play third base, like I don't know if you saw that, but they're moving him to first and DH. I think without him having to, focus on playing that difficult position of third base, I think that he could just really explode offensively, and he's just so talented. And I'm really just excited to watch his career unfold. I mean, you saw his power in the home run derby. That was insane. So I definitely think that Vlad Jr. is my choice for a breakout guy this year. And I think, in switching over to MVPs, who do you have in both leagues?
We'll start with the American League, and I just can't not shy away from it. It's Mike Trout. Mike Trout's the best player in baseball. I personally think he's the best player, or at least on track to be the best player of all time. So Mike Trout will still be my American League MVP prediction every year until he proves me otherwise. I'm not going to change that anytime soon. For National League MVP, this was a really, really tough one. There's a lot of great options there. It really depends on how far, I guess, each team goes. You can mention Bryce Harper potentially for the Phillies. if the Phillies do well, I can see Bryce Harper winning the MVP. For me, I'm going to go with Acuna on the Braves. He's really just so fun to watch. He makes baseball fun. He brings fans into the stadiums. He fills the ballparks. I'm going to go with Acuna as the National League MVP, helping the Braves at least get to the wild card spot.
I think
dark horse MVP, Pete Alonso.
Good choice. I'm going to go Mike Trout. You already elaborated on it. I elaborated on it. Best player in baseball, blah, blah, blah. But National League, I think Bryce Harper wins because he doesn't have that chance for his slump. He always has the slump, and it's always like the worst slump in the league. So he's not going to have that chance this year. I think he catches fire. But I also like Juan Soto and Acuna because, you saw what they both did last year, and especially Soto in the World Series. I like both of those young guys. It's a really fun time to watch baseball because of those young players. So if you're one of those people that's, ripping baseball these days for being slow and blah blah blah, just look at those young guys. They're really good and watch them. I really like them. But I think go ahead.
I would say the only chance that here's the reason why Juan Soto can win the MVP, because I can only see the only chance the Nationals doing well is if Juan Soto is hitting the ball well. Like, really. Their lineup definitely took a hit with Rendon. I personally, if I was the Nationals, I would have signed Rendon over Strasburg, considering they already have Corbin, and Corbin would be solid enough too. But that's just my opinion, of course. Yeah. But they instead went with the dominant pitching staff, which of course isn't bad at all, and it would be really good for the 60-game season, but they're going to need hitting too, and that's going to be Juan Soto's job to really be consistent bat in the middle of a lineup, and if he is, he'll win the National League MVP.
Yeah, and going back to that Strasburg-Rendon take, you always got to factor in injuries for Strasburg. Like, if you look at his ERA, he's been one of the best pitchers of the past 10 years, but he's just been like 23, 25, 24, like whatever. Like, he hasn't started those like 30 games more than a couple times. And so that I think is a big concern. But, he was so good. You can't just let your World Series MVP just walk like that. So that's a very difficult argument. But keeping with pitching, your Cy Young Award winners.
For the National League, I'm still going to go Jacob deGrom. I think he'll three-peat. He's just so good. He's just so dominant. His career ERA is under 3, which is amazing. It's really unfortunate his career kind of started late, but that's mainly because he's a position player. He's a position player in college, so he's transitioned into the pitching game late. So that kind of could benefit him in a way because he can throw later without like the youth tear into the arm. So I gotta go with deGrom until someone else proves worthy. It could be Walker Buehler. He's a very slept-on candidate. Or obviously Max Scherzer, a reliable candidate as well. But I'm gonna go Jacob deGrom, especially since Syndergaard's out. They know they'll need deGrom to be dominant every 5th or possibly every 4th day with the Mets. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets do a 4-man rotation.
I'm gonna go with deGrom as well. I mean, the dude is just so dominant. I think he's not going to be looked at as that dominant when he retires because of just the fact that he's never gotten those win totals, which for some reason the old heads love to just, look at and yell about, even though it really doesn't matter. It's about your team behind you performing. But I would go with deGrom. I think he's going to have like a 1.5 this year in 12 starts or whatever 14 starts he makes. That's going to he's just going to be insane. And then American League, I'm pretty at a loss with this one, but I think Blake Snell will have a bounce back year.
That was my bounce back player.
And I'm gonna go Blake Snell or a sleeper, Sean Manaea. I like him with the A's. I think he came back off of injury and was really good last year for them. A's are always a good team
to get to the wild card than lose in the wild card.
Yeah, of course. But I could see Sean Manaea. This again coming off injury, he's not got that many starts this year. It could help his arm. He's had some really good starts.
He really did. I'm gonna go with Garrett Cole as the American League Cy Young. I think he's ready to pitch in New York. Really embrace the opportunity, and he's ready. And he really should have won last year, in my opinion. But he didn't, and I think he's gonna be a little hungry, and he knows his role in New York. I don't think, dealing with the New York media as much. I think it's gonna help him a lot. Transition into being a New York Yankee, because everyone always talks about how hard that transition is, because it really is something else. Obviously, it's the most prestige franchise in Major League Baseball. So I'm going to go with Garrett Cole. I think he's ready to embrace the opportunity.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think he was going to be one of my choices, but then Blake Snell popped into my head, and I was like, oh no, he's kind of a little bit DeGrom like in the fact that he just keeps that ERA super low. But who do you think this is the last question I have. Who's bouncing back this year? What player is going to bounce back?
And you're just hitting on it. I was going to say Blake Snell. I think it's a perfect opportunity for him to bounce back. The Braves really need him because they go with the bullpen games a lot. They want to make sure they have more consistent starters to go along with Charlie Morton. And going into last year, it was supposed to be Charlie Morton and Blake Snell, but Blake Snell really kind of fell off. He finished with a 4.29 ERA compared to his Cy Young Award winning year, where he had a 1.89 ERA, which is so look at that, it's a big drop off. I don't expect him to do that, but I think he'll bounce back and really sit in the low threes, maybe high twos ERA for the Rays and help them get into the postseason.
My bounce back is not Chris Davis with a C, it's Chris Davis with a K. That dude was so consistent, 247 basically every year, which is about the average for hitters these days. But I think Chris Davis with a K, I think he's going to bounce back. Again, another Oakland A.
Not the Orioles, Chris Davis.
No, not the Orioles, Chris Davis. Even though he had a very good spring training back when there was spring training.
I got a hit, yeah.
But Chris Davis with a K, I think, that last year was weird, him going down to like 220 and only hitting like 20-something home runs. I think this year he'll go back and, 250 hitter, and I think he'll hit a lot of home runs in 60 games. I think he might go over his home run total of last year. He seems to not have a problem hitting in that monstrosity out there in Oakland. That is just such a pitcher's park. So I think yeah, he's gonna be my bounce back player. But this was fun. I had a really good time picking what is probably not gonna happen at all in Major League Baseball this year. But hey, it was still fun, and I hope our audience enjoyed it. Make sure to follow Crush Ball on Twitter, like us on Facebook, Portland Crush, and follow us on Instagram at Portland Crush Baseball. We will see you for the next podcast.